Hey everybody, welcome to Landscape Rescue, where our motto is you might not be impressed, but you won't be disappointed. Today's a very special episode for me because I get to show you guys my neighbor's backyard. If you are new to the channel, I do a lot of clearance plant shopping, and the direction I have always wanted to take the channel is I can pay it forward, right? So take my neighbor, for instance, early 80s. Over the past 7 years, she's lost a partner. She's had 4 different surgeries, 2 of which were hip surgeries, 2 of which were spinal surgeries, and it's become impossible to maintain a beautiful landscape, which is something that she really likes. This year, I've been going in and doing things for my disabled veteran across the street. So I take the clearance plants, I flip the bill for this stuff so it doesn't cost them any money to allow me to do this. And it's a symbiotic relationship because I get a lot of joy out of it and I get some content for you guys. Let's get in there and let's take a look. All right. Oh, the garden gate. So we open up into the backyard. If you look at what it looked like before, it was a clean slate and purely utilitarian. There's a couple spots where there were some giant pin oaks that were shading this entire backyard, and she planted those when they were very, very tiny. Her dad actually planted them for her, and they were just little tiny things, so big that they would get killed by weed eaters. And so she lost a couple. I think she bought like 14 of them or something. But anyway, they're absolutely enormous. It's been a little tricky in this backyard because we have the house shading some of the flower beds that I've created. We have this giant pin oak back here that's shading other areas. One of the beds is very, very much a hybrid. It's got some full sun stuff and a bunch of hostas that we bought on clearance. But let's just focus right now. We'll get to the hosta bed, but I wanted to talk about this bed on the right here. So this bed here is very simple, and a lot of this just, I guess I'm making an excuse for myself. This is roughed out, right? So let me get the plants in the ground. Let me get some bones put into the landscape. Let me get some mulch down. Let me start improving the soil. We start doing the things that I like to do when I'm allowed to do those. It's a great thing about having a YouTube channel. The predominant audience being frugal homeowners that want to kind of improve their landscaping, we can take our time and we can do things the right way. Not saying that commercial like landscapers don't do things the right way, but they are kind of rushed. So I can do things that it just takes a lot of time, but as far as manual labor goes, it's a lot less manual labor. One of the things that I like to do is I like to mark out my beds and then I spray. So I don't have to go in there and I don't have to pull a lot of the turf. One of the driving forces behind that is I really don't like pulling out all that really delicious topsoil. What I'd like to do is like to kill off whatever vegetation is in the area and then come back 2 weeks later and then put a very thick layer of arborist chips, which is what I have on the beds now. The great thing about arborist chips is, for the most part, they're free. I did give $20 to Chip Drop so that they would drop. I could get it faster because I kind of wanted to finish this bed. I mean, within 3 hours, I had a guy contact me. I mean, it worked. It was worth $20, significantly cheaper than if I would have gotten hardwood mulch or cedar mulch or one of the bougie dyed mulches. But I like to put a very thick layer down. And a lot of the times, if I'm looking at a space where I want to have a flower bed, and again, I have the time, I will just go ahead, mark it out, spray it, and then put the mulch on there and just let it sit. I usually put a triple 14, triple 13 slow release fertilizer, so that way I've got the nitrogen to break down some of the more woody material, and then I just let it sit. And if I do come across some crazy clearance, like what happened last time we went to Lowe's, if you want to catch that video, I've got that video. I should be able to put the thumbnail in here so you can see it. Check out the amount of clearance that I just stumbled across all of a sudden. This entire backyard is clearance and some divided hostas that she had on the property that I just divided. Very minimal. I did all of this for about $300. I don't even take into account the triple 13 because I get it in a 50-pound bag, and that's very inexpensive. And I use that on all the neighbors' yards. I use that on the veterans' yard. I've used that on my yard already twice this year, and I still have that 50-pound bag. But let's get into this bed here. So if you can see, very simple. These are just the bones. A little bit of layering in here, but nothing crazy. I do need to keep some space around the shed because I do have a plan to maybe get some discontinued pavers or something like that and create kind of a half circle right in front of this. I can move the paths in a more whimsical nature, widen them so she can get around in her with her walker, and then maybe create a little space over here that doesn't have a step to where she can have a place in the fall and in the early spring when the weather's really nice, be able to sit down and have a safe place to just kind of absorb these new flower beds that we've created. And I think what that's going to do, once I can get to the point, I need to grow as a channel, but once we get to the point where I can do something like that, I think that would really change I want to make this look like a secret garden. Give her the impression that she's the only one that knows it's here. You know, that was my driving force. She does have somewhat of a folk style aesthetic. We have old wagon wheels and some lawn equipment from the 40s, it looks like. One of those push lawn mowers that's got the blades, and just, it's very pretty. There's a lot of folk style design cues here. And so when I was doing this bed, basically we have prairie wind switchgrass, we have curls, daylilies, and we have powwow wildberry, echinacea, and then those Merlot hardy hibiscus that we found at Lowe's. So the prairie winds was $5 a piece. The Merlots were, I think it's Merlot, Moonshadow Morello hardy hibiscus. So you see how we did that. We just kind of, you know, hopscotched them down, right? So switchgrass, hardy hibiscus, switchgrass, hardy hibiscus, switchgrass. And these were all, actually, those hardy hibiscus, I didn't pay anything for those. Those were dumpster hardy hibiscus. And they're starting to push new growth, and I think I have enough time, being we're moving towards the end of August. I think the rest of September, we're losing sunlight, we're losing daylight hours, but they're starting to look good. They've been fertilized with 2-year fertilizer tablets and beneficial fungus and beneficial bacteria. I ended up running out for some of this, but this whole bed got inoculated with Espoma, Biotone Plus. And then the 2-year fertilizer tablets were Agriform. So I bought some of those, we put those in. You got powwow wildberries, the curls, the morellos, and then the prairie wind switchgrass, and this is Niagara Falls, because prairie wind is the series. So that's gonna go here. I would really like to get to the point where I can do something right here, maybe a full circle, a half circle in the front of the gate and a half circle in the back, but when you open up the gates, it's a complete circle. I do like how that would look. Right here, if you look, when I created this bed, I did a radius out here and then just got a big giant. So I kind of wanted to, you know, make it to where I could put a path in there and then put a, see, because here's an old pin oak spot where this old pin oak was. Maybe put a berm in here, maybe put another, like a freestanding retaining wall and have a raised bed in here. I think that would look real pretty. And plus, I have the room if I wanted to do a weeping snow fountain cherry or a tree panicle hydrangea or something like that, just some sort of center point, and create an area where she can get some exercise and she can walk around and she can look at all of her plants. I think that would be fun, and I think that would be utilitarian. If nothing else, it'll give me a place to walk around and enjoy the garden because I do like this. She has a little tiny dog, so we don't have to worry about, well, let's just say it's a Yorkie. I've had poops bigger than this dog. So this dog is not going to tear up the yard. So we can really have a lot of fun with a lot of different paths and things like that. And in my head, that's what I envision in here is I envision a whimsical path, maybe made of different stones. She's from that generation, you know, waste not, want not, give her something that sticks with that folk style aesthetic. Now I think the powwow wildberries and the switchgrass, the daylilies, the hardy hibiscus, that all lends itself very prairie. In our fields, we have hardy hibiscus that just grow wild. In the boggier, lower areas of a field that hold water, we have that here. So in this bed, the kind of half circle one where I was thinking about maybe putting a path, we have some hostas across the back row. We don't know what variety those are, but they're a little on the smaller side. Since they removed the pin oaks in the backyard, Mrs. Sharon had 2 whiskey barrels that had those. She had those hostas in those whiskey barrels, but they were starting to degrade to the point where the water was leaking out of them very quickly. There is a irrigation in the backyard, and one of the spray heads, which was for the turf, was hitting one of the whiskey barrels, but they still weren't getting enough water. And being she can't come out and hand water them anymore, I kind of wanted to bring things lower to the ground until I can get in here and put in a hillbilly irrigation. So, which is a distinct possibility. I think the lawn sprinklers will be able to sustain this hosta bed once it's established. But right now it is requiring some hand watering on my part to keep everything looking good. This hellebore is not happy. It has not liked me neglecting it now that it's not on my front porch anymore getting watered. Or front stoop. I have a stoop. I don't have a porch. Would be nice. Hashtag dreams, right? Life goals. This is where we put the majority of the hostas from that shopping trip in Lowe's. We have the Shadowland Seducer. We have the Shadowland Voices of the Wind. I left the tags laying on the ground so I'd know what they were. This Ben Vernoy, which to me just looks like a Patriot hosta. And then we have a lot of these little guys here, the Rainforest, that Rainforest hosta from Monrovia. We got all of these for what I remember, $5 a piece. Now it seems like a lot when you look at how big this bed is. I mean, it's a pretty large flower bed, and you look at it and you think, well, that's a lot of money. $5 here, $5 there. But I look at hostas as an investment. If you're a veteran of the channel, you know that hostas I consider a fantastic pay it forward plant. And being that I can come back in here and I can separate things and I can use those on other projects, you know, Mrs. Sharon's not going to have a problem with me doing that, you know, which we did with her whiskey barrel hostas. Washed the roots on all of this stuff because I didn't really know where I know now, but I just wanted to go ahead and wash a lot of the roots because it goes really fast, especially with 1 gallon stuff. Because I didn't know where some of these cables were running, and I saw a gas line that ran through some conduit, and I was just a little apprehensive, so I didn't really want to do too much of that. So a lot of times if you see me washing the roots on a plant for future reference, or if you've seen me do it in the past, a lot of the time I just can't dig very deep in that. It's just risky to dig there. Either they're roots from another plant that I don't want to disturb, especially in the hot part of the summer. All of these were planted during a heat wave. So when I see some of these rainforest hostas pushing new growth, that gives me, I like that. I like seeing that, that they're doing well. So that is the hosta bed with a couple hellebore in there. One of them just didn't like being transplanted, but I think it'll come back next year. But that's kind of these two beds here, like I said, it was a clean slate. There wasn't really a whole lot of things to work around. There is irrigation line in here, and that's another thing. I don't really know where all the irrigation line is, for lack of a better term. Pipes underneath the ground, 1-inch poly is what I've seen so far. I was digging over here with the power planter and saw where the line was, and then I could use the power planter from that point on, once I knew the line was going straight through this way. And so in this bed, the line is actually going between the grasses and the powwow wildberry. So there's a couple little groups of 3 in the center, and then I put one over here and one over there because that's how many I had. So it just kind of did it like that. I think this is going to be really pretty because the hardy hibiscus is going to get like 5 feet by like 4 feet. It's going to get big, and it's just going to fill that area up. And then if the perennials need to be moved, I'll move the perennials. But the backbone is there. The backbones, there's all a natural edge here. I mean, I sprayed where I was going to, I took the mulch right up to where I sprayed, went around the backside of her property. So starting behind this bench here, all the way back, we put that prairie winds. I could have put another prairie wind switchgrass over there in the corner, but there's a head, an irrigation head, and I kind of want to rely on that a little bit to water this stuff. So I wanted enough room, if you can see how where the fence has stained, where the water has stained the fence, that arc, it should be able to clear all those grasses and water them a little bit. But like I said, there's going to be a hillbilly irrigation. I'm just going to run 1-inch poly from this corner all the way around behind the shed and run down here, and then I'll tee right here in this bed. So like I mentioned earlier, this L, the bottom of this L, is going to, I'm just going to leave it and let it sit, and then as we come across clearance plants, you know, stuff that will take full sun, I can pop them in here, and I think that would be really pretty to just be able to have some versatility. Once I build the half circle in front of the shed, we've got 2 really nice pots that Sharon's wonderful daughter has bought, and we're going to put those on either side there, and then put some grasses or some Luna hardy hibiscus I would think would be fun, or maybe even some really tough like columnar junipers that we can pop in there to frame that out for winter interest. That's it. I'm super excited about it. I mean, it took a lot of work to do this, and it seems silly to do an 8-minute video or a 15-minute video on the amount of work that went into this, but you guys have seen me plant plants before. Most of you know how to plant plants, so you don't need to watch me do it. I can just speed up the footage and show you this, but a lot of this was just show you how I build a bed in the beginning. And again, I can reiterate, I put a thick layer of mulch down, and then I like to put a slow release fertilizer, even though I'm not going to plant anything in there. But that gives me the nitrogen that I need to let the bed just sit and simmer and let nature do its work. Now, the good thing about pole chips is pole chips are going to have a lot of green in them. They're going to have a lot of, and when I say pole chips, I mean arborist chips. Pole chips aren't ground up. I think where that terminology comes from, it's they grind up the limbs and everything when they take a tree, and then all the bark gets peeled off, and then they make them into telephone poles. Well, what do you do with the slag from that part of the production? You grind them up, and you chip them, and you throw them into a big giant pile, and you used to be able to go get those for free in places where they grow like big loblollies and things like that to make telephone poles. They don't do that around here, but what we do have is we have a lot of arborists. And since this is oak country, we have a ton of maples. We get a lot of arborist chips, and I just, they're not going to match because some of this was from a different load. All of this is maple and birch. They're not going to match, but give it a month or two, and it'll all just, you know, it'll all look the same. I felt like that's no real big deal. And you can just sit on the bed. Sit on the bed. I like to irrigate it, you know, if I can. Just put the hillbilly irrigation in, and that way I can water it if I want and get some moisture if there's not a lot of rain, because moisture is important to help this stuff break down. And that's really the key when you're dealing with fresh mulch. Now it's just sweat equity, right? I'm just literally mulching as many times as I can in that cycle to get that to break down as quick as possible. And then eventually you go and you dig a hole, and it's almost like you have this epiphany. Your soil looks like coffee grounds. I mean, it's so rich and such a great environment to grow plants in. So I really think that's the best way for a home gardener. If you just don't like how it looks, don't use it in the front yard, but use it in the backyard and just kind of do your own little experiments. I haven't experimented with it, but there is mulch dye that I've used on hardwood mulch when it starts losing its color. You would have businesses would want a freshen up, which means they just want the black mulch back, and you just go and you spray it. I mean, so you could do that. It seems like a kind of a waste of money, and it's organic. So it's not like it's going to hurt anything in the soil, but I don't know, seems like an extra expense, so I wouldn't go through it, but it would make this look darker and a little more bougie. It is what it is. Fun times, but I wanted to do this and show you that part of it. So I do put the triple 13 down so I can speed up the decomposition process, and I like to keep it moist. That is the rub. If you got any questions, leave a comment. I love the comments. Sometimes I say I love the comments, and then 6 hours later I'm still answering comments, but it's no big deal, guys. I like it. I like it. It might take me a couple days to get to you, but I'll get to you. And I just want to thank everybody. I know these videos don't do fantastic. I know they're not big bangers videos as far as views go. The amount of positive vibes I get from doing this, I would do it without the YouTube channel. I love this kind of stuff so much. I love paying it forward, but the YouTube channel definitely helps. You guys have been so supportive with your time and with your donations. Thank you for everybody that has put in super chats to make this possible, because a lot of you have, and we really haven't addressed what I've done with your hard-earned money. This is where it went. So we have done a lot of good in this flower bed. I also bought a chainsaw so I can help my veteran neighbor, which is right across the way here. And if you've noticed, there is not as many trees now. So that backyard has become 100% full sun, which it wasn't before, because I've cut down all those volunteers that were, 8 feet. I did keep this beautiful redbud here so Sharon can enjoy that. And I need to stake this one that's leaning, but I'll get to that when I get to it. Thank you everybody who watches these videos from the beginning to the end. That is huge for the algorithm. It helps other people find the channel, and hopefully we can help them collectively if they have any questions. Always feel free to answer questions in the comments. A lot of you guys are good about that. I think probably Will is the one that chimes in the most. He does have a lot of plant experience. What I really like about you leaving comments is that I just get to connect with you a little bit. From all over the world, all over the country, we have questions. I had somebody leave me a comment in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, but Google does. So I translated it, and then I left them an answer in Spanish, which was probably a little bit more humorous. I hope they thought it was funny, but you never know. But I like the fact that people like our friend Will chime in and answer some questions. We had somebody leave a comment about root pruning on the last Lowe's video about Japanese maples and how to keep them viable in pots. Like good stuff, good information that I really like that you guys share, because I didn't think about root pruning. If I want to transplant a Japanese maple, I will a lot of times hit the pot with a hammer, break the pot, and then bump it to a bigger pot. That's what I do. You know what I mean? So I like the fact that somebody's taking the bonsai approach and doing some root pruning. That was a good comment. So whoever you were, because I'm too lazy to look you up, thank you very much. That's it for Sharon's backyard. My name's Stuart Moore. This was Landscape Rescue. Thank you very much for letting me into your home, talk about plants.